Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 31 pod of the FPL Wire. I'm your host, Zoph. My co-host, Late Riser, and I are joined by our friend, Pras. How are you doing, buddy?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on again. Pleasure always to be on.
How was Saturday in the studios, Pras?
Man, it was... it's very hard to even describe it, and we could spend a whole pod doing it. I mean, I talked for 10 minutes with Sonaldo yesterday on Burning Questions. We did a short video. But I mean, the summary is it was surreal. I mean, Sky Studios is like a campus because obviously Sky it's not just a sports channel. It's got cinema, it's got everything else. It's like you go head into university, you go into Sky Sports News. And yeah, it was a great experience. And I really enjoyed sort of representing the FPL community because it felt like, we are like everybody else and we were there and, we've got cameras and we're talking to Haley, who's been presenting Sky Sports News for years. And he's asking proper FPL questions, whether we should buy Wilson or Watson. It was very, very surreal.
Did the nerves hit in at all? Or once you started talking FPL, things were just fine?
It took about, I would say 3-4 minutes. In the beginning, I mean, you were not focused on the answer. It was about, there's a camera here, I need to look here. Am I standing correctly? Am I doing everything? And then the next thought is, okay, she asked a question. Okay, that's the standard answer. Then after, I think, subsequent 2-3 minutes, then you sort of get back into the groove because ultimately you can talk FPL with anyone. So the questions get easier, and then you're sort of in a more comfort zone. So it got better.
Nice. And what a day for Sonaldo as well. I mean, he got to see that absolute scorcher from Sonny, and shout out to Baker as well for making sure he took him to the stadium as well. So yeah, shout out. Great stuff.
It was great outing. I enjoyed the rapid fire round in particular. There was one question, I think there was only 1 point between the two players. I think Rashford and Saka or something like that.
Yeah.
That was
really
so
good. I mean, basically, the producer told us there's going to be a quiz and it's going to be on basic stuff. And, I'm a geek. So I was like, okay, I'll prepare. So basically, I was like, what are they going to ask? They'll ask for FPL points. I went through all of that. I went through bonuses. The one thing I didn't do is basically the prices. And that's where I tripped up in the last question, which was between Sterling and Bruno.
Yeah, I would have guessed the same as you. I didn't realize Sterling was that expensive. It was fun. It was fun watching you guys. Great job. Very well done. Very professional. Proud of you guys.
Thank you.
Pras, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Like back in college, back in school, did you hand out your homework to everybody else?
I was a geek, man. I was a complete geek.
But like, it's essentially what you're doing with burning questions. You know that, right? It's just a continuation of that at the moment.
Yeah. No, I was always the guy who prepped the kids or the colleagues before the exam, not the guy copying the notes. So yeah.
Same here.
Yes.
Cool. Let's get started, guys. We'll do a sponsor plug and jump right in.
Let's go.
You want to talk about anything else about the game week as such that's gone?
I'm like, okay, he's nice. He's 50, moved on. No. I'm like, I'm okay with that.
No,
I'm okay with that. No little rant. I had the 2 highest XGI accumulators of the week, and I had a red arrow to show for it. That's the game we play.
Okay. I'm glad that we're keeping the PG rating this time. Before we change our minds, let's move on. All data you see on the FPL Wire is taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. The new improved members area is now up and running, and the new comparison tool lets you compare key stats for up to 3 players. Player projections are also live, and as always, you can access the custom stats table we create or make one for yourself. Sign up for membership today using our affiliate link in the description below. Right, guys, where should we start? I think let's talk about the elephant or the Rashford in the room first up. What do you say?
That's true. I mean, what do we know? That he's going to miss a few games, and everybody is subjectively debating what few means. And I mean, where we have certain ITKs on Twitter saying that few probably means around or after the game week 34 or 35 mark. Now, what people do with this bit of news, as Pras was discussing before the pod started, why don't you tell them what this news actually means?
I mean, look, essentially we don't know anything. Few weeks could be just a couple of cups and one league game. But basically what people will use this information as, they look at their team and they want a spot for Grealish, and maybe they don't have one. So doctors will come out and say, okay, I think, groin injury based on past expected groin recovery, I suspect game week 34 is impossible. For people who want to keep him and have a Barnes or a Maddison, will say few games, there's a FA Cup, there's a couple of Europa League games. He'll be back for game week 33 for sure. I think the answer is we don't know. And you sort of have to react and take a chance. If you have to sell him, you sell him. If your team allows keeping him and selling somebody else for a Grealish or somebody else, then do that. I think that's the short and simple answer.
It is team dependent, right? I don't think we can give a clear answer that he is a sell or a hold. It very much depends on the composition of your team. If you have the Arsenal mid, if you have Maddison. And the tricky thing is, for most of us who are free hitting next week, saving a transfer isn't an option. That's the curveball over here, because ordinarily I would have liked to say, okay, there's uncertainty, save a transfer, wait a week for more information, but you're pretty much burning that transfer, because for anyone watching who doesn't know, if you have 2 free transfers and you free hit, you lose that additional transfer the week after. You'll still have the 1 transfer after the free hit, not 2. So what do you guys think? First off, let's just discuss possible replacements, and then we can discuss timelines and all that stuff. But before that, I do want to just mention the schedule. And this is what I think is necessary to get some context while we discuss this. So I'm going to enlarge this image a little bit so that the guys on mobile can see this a bit more clearly. I've got Lego Mane's schedule up over here. Now it's worth mentioning that game week 33 is a midweek game week. So effectively the teams playing in the FA Cup semi-final are going to be playing Saturday, midweek of 33. that is the midweek after, then 34. Then obviously they'll have that second double game week fixture in the middle of between game week 34 and 35. So from 32 to 35, you'll effectively be playing 3 games every week on the domestic front. I'm not even talking about cup fixtures over here. So even if Rashford is back around then, my general guess is he won't be playing all these games. The minutes will have to be managed. You can't run him to the ground because obviously Ten Hag probably has learned his lesson from last time. He spoke about the schedule, but then ultimately he should have possibly rested Rashford, right? If he's worried about injuries 3 games in 6 days, then resting Rashford was the solution. So I think even if he is back, minutes are managed. So in my opinion, I'm more likely to sell him than keep.
Just adding a little bit of context here when it comes to Ten Hag's choice and whether he's going to be managing those minutes is that the game week 33 fixture is against Spurs. And one of the double game week fixtures is against Brighton, both of whom were competing for those European places. So minutes management is a separate equation. But if he's even remotely close to being fit, and I've observed quietly from the back how Ten Hag is operating this season, I think even if he's 75% fit, 80% fit, he plays. Because those 2 games against direct rivals for 4th place are just that important.
That's fair, but then you have the home game against Villa. It's also worth mentioning that the 34 double isn't that easy, I think. You say Villa and Brighton, they're both good teams now. They're both in the top half of the table. So like you said, there are teams that are around Man United. I think we can go without Rashford. And if we think that he's back around 34, buy him back then. Because let's say even if we buy Grealish and we reach 34, if Rashford is fully fit and fighting, I have no qualms selling Grealish for Rashford, even for a hit. He's a better FPL asset.
I wanted to bring this up, and this is a little bit of a digression at the moment. We'll probably do this conversation after we discuss the Rashford replacements, but I think fixture difficulty and big teams versus big teams is a genuine conversation to be had now. I think just to give you the summary of what my thought is, and it's something I want to explore when I'm about to write my article. But if you're thinking about the managers, Guardiola, Klopp, De Zerbi, Ten Hag, and Arteta, I think when teams managed by these 5 players are going to play each other, it isn't one team saying, you know what, I'm going to defend my lead. It's Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed. It's punch after punch after punch after punch. They're probably one of the best attacking fixtures for these teams, for these players. If you just remotely think about the results that we've had this season, City drubbed us, Arsenal versus Liverpool, you saw the open goal fest it was. And these 5 aren't pragmatic managers. They're purists when they come to managing games, and they go for it. They absolutely go for it, which leaves space for the opposition team, which my bet is when I'm actually looking into the data, these managers playing these managers, we probably see the highest XG games of the season. Now, this is just a theory in my head, but I think our purview in terms of how we look at attackers playing in these games needs to change.
Do you agree, Pras?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a very good point. And I can also see a couple of, the broader point is we also have to think about how many competitions Man United is in by the time they get into. So if we're back to the Rashford topic, how many competitions Man United is in? Because obviously we'll know the FA Cup semi-final result by then. We will know if they beat Sevilla or not. We will know how well they're doing in the Champions League places. By giving Baker's in the chat, he makes a point. Like, we could be well clear of the 4th place team by game week 34. So there are a lot of these permutation combinations where if you're selling Rashford, then you need to be open to buying him back, because minutes managed or not, he's still the talisman, right? I think I made a comment yesterday, he's a top 5 FPL asset this year. I think I stand by it. Haaland, Kane, Salah, Rashford, Saka, I guess these are the 5 guys from the top 5 teams. So if you're selling him, have a clear plan to buy him back. But also, I think for people like me who've got a Barnes, who have the luxury to keep him because they have something else to sort out first, you also is okay to keep him with the idea that if he doesn't look fit, then you move him on then. So either way, I think the logic works.
Yeah. And and for those of you who are looking at new manager bounce when it comes to Leicester City assets, firstly, they're playing Manchester City this week. And secondly, they've hired Dean Smith. So that's all I have to say on that matter.
Yeah, we know where he lives.
Yeah.
Going back to your point about the big teams thing, I partly agree with you, but I don't think any team playing Manchester City is still a very high scoring opportunity, because Man City are very different. Like Heisenberg, They are the danger. Like, so very much
Yeah.
they are the ones that who, like, you see, I don't think any team is going to, even Arsenal versus Man City, I would half consider benching Saka that week.
I mean, look at the game yesterday, the Champions League game, the Bayern Munich one. The scoreline says 3-0, but Bayern Munich they were attacking. I mean, they did have.
Sane had his chances, yeah.
Correct. So, I mean, to an extent, I agree. And these managers aren't scared. I mean, there is no philosophy of sitting back anymore, especially against these good managers. There is none. We didn't do it. Man United didn't do it. I would say the only team that you'd expect maybe to sit back and not attack as much is Chelsea, Spurs. Maybe those guys are not yet there. But the pedigree of the other managers, like LR mentioned, I completely get that they could be high scoring games.
So, guys, let's just talk then before anything. What more is there to talk about the Rashford? Where are you then, Pras, with your team, and how do you think it would be different according to people's team? What are the different options and modalities there?
So, what people need to consider at the moment where we stand, there's 6 good midfielders for game week 34. So, if we are thinking about, let's ignore all the other game weeks before then. If you want to target game week 34, there's 6 good midfielders. There's the 2 Brighton mids. Or if you want to add a third Brighton mid. So 2 Brighton mids minimum. You have Bruno, Salah, Grealish, and Rashford. So that's 6. You cannot have 6, obviously. So what people might do, as you are saying, Zoph, is you get to a Grealish now, and then you are open to selling Grealish to get Rashford back because you think Rashford is better than Grealish in those 6. People like me, I will get the 5 except Salah. And then leading into game week 34, I will decide whether that's Bruno who goes for Salah, whether that's Rashford who goes for Salah, or whether that is Grealish that goes for Salah. Now, I would rather be in a position where I own Salah. Obviously, I'm not in that. And if I could get to Barnes to Salah more easily, I could do it. But I can't. And that's where I see the position. I think it's more a macro picture of where you want to get to, which 5 midfielders you want to target, and how easy to do that. It is to do that in 34.
Spot on there. LR, how are you feeling with Salah there in your midfield?
Great. Ridiculous pick for the rest of the season. Probably the best pick in midfield, if you ask me. Like the thing that I like the most about Liverpool going into the end of the season is majority of their games are home. And, we've been chatting as well. And you mentioned that 32 to 35 is really tight for them. But between 32 to 35, they just play one game away. And which is what I like. They're playing 4 games at Anfield and they're playing 1 game away. Travel time, etc. All of that gets compounded in such a travel time. And I think anybody that doesn't own him needs to make a plan to own him, especially with the slight change in shape. He's playing a lot more central. Was ridiculously attacking against Arsenal. Yeah. Only thing is that because he's trying too hard, his finishing is a little snappy at the moment. He's not connecting as well as they used to. But I mean, if I'm looking at his stats in the last 7 or 8 games, I think he's a return a game in the last 7 or 8, and should have had at least 3 returns in the game against Arsenal. Those fixtures are just a joke. I mean, let's read them out again. We're looking at Leeds, Forest, West Ham, Spurs at home, Fulham at home, Brentford at home, Leicester away, Villa at home, Southampton away. Like, again, if the FPL gods were trying to game good fixtures for an asset, I mean, Liverpool have the fixtures.
Yeah, and the only concern people might have is the Liverpool away versus home. Sorry, Zoph, I cut you off. But basically, so I'm sort of justifying to myself, wrongly, I'm admitting. But basically, I'm justifying to myself, I'll have Salah for game week 32, free hit. That's the home game. I'll have Salah for game week 34, the 2 home games. The 2 away games is what I'm missing. But the 2 away games are also very juicy. I mean, West Ham are leaking goals like anything. So that's not difficult, especially against Cresswell. And Leeds away, I mean, you saw Leeds how they were as well against, who did they lose to?
Palace.
Palace, correct. So, I mean, those 2 fixtures are also there for the taking.
Completely agree. And like you said, we should be making plans for Trent also, I think, in 34, because anyone didn't catch that he was playing sort of an inverted fullback role, similar to what we've seen Cancelo do, playing much further up in midfield. So that's something we need to keep in mind for 34 as well.
With Trent, also, it's with him, right? It's not just the position that matters, in my opinion. I think when you're watching Trent, like, you come to know whether he's switched on and whether he's not switched on, whether he's on it and not on it. And I thought in the last 60 against Arsenal, I thought he was great. Like, probably one of the best differentials in the game right now for rank chasers, if you ask me.
Spot on. I've got the numbers up here now for midfielders over the last 6 matches, sorted by expected goal involvement. Is it as simple as buy Grealish, no brainer, or do we need to possibly look at Mahrez, who was benched last week? Pras, you had an interesting view on this.
Well, I just think if you're getting a City midfielder, we can discuss that maybe in game week 34 we sell them because we want space. But what if Rashford isn't fit? What if there's another problem? So you have to be prepared to hold the City midfielder for till the end of the season.
Hands up. I think selling City midfielder in 34 is all ball talk. I don't think anybody is remotely going to consider doing anything close to that in 34. I just want to call that out right now.
Fair. So so we agree that basically if you're getting a City mid, you're pretty much then locked in for that double in 37 as well. You're not basically going to sell. So you need to think about longevity with your pick, and Foden is going to come back anytime. And Mahrez was the guy who was benched. So basically yesterday night, when Mahrez is benched in the Champions League, I see on Twitter, best pick, Man City pick, Mahrez is now, nailed for this weekend. But the fact of the matter is we're not buying for this weekend. We're buying for the rest of the game weeks, which is 8 game weeks. And I still think for expected minutes, excellent stats, I think Grealish is the second best pick at the moment.
Yeah, I mentioned on the pod last week that he possibly is on the precipice of becoming a great FPL player outside of a great real life player, and still see that. But I do want to mention it's been 3 games and Kev is looking like Kev again. Like he's looking really, really on it again. Limited minutes, 60 minutes. And Alvarez, every time he plays, all of us watching Manchester City are scratching our heads. Why isn't this guy starting every game? That is a problem. But that is somebody who you're looking for if you're in my position, if you're rank chasing. But even then, the 5 million sort of adds up and you're compromising on Salah. Grealish is just there to take. I mean, the remotely second choice pick under Grealish is not Mahrez. Mahrez isn't a pick in my opinion, especially because of the presence of Foden. It's Gundogan. Gundogan is still the ancillary forward unless Foden comes into the team. It's his responsibility to stay stationed in the box. So if you want to differentiate, go Gundogan or De Bruyne because you're feeling De Bruyne, but Grealish is the obvious pick. He looks it at the moment.
Yep, I wouldn't go near KDB because they have so many teams that are playing now that have the deep block that Pep calls it, right? He likes playing his 2 strikers. And I guess the City guys are pretty much only if you're those who are free hitting in 32. If you're not free hitting, it has to be an Arsenal mid.
I guess if you're not free hitting in 32, and this was a discussion we wanted to have as well, that then the picture completely changes. For example, the Maddison discussion. Then if you have Maddison or Rashford, you sell Rashford and not Maddison if you're not free hitting in 32, because Maddison has a good fixture. You gain an extra player and then you take a punt that Rashford isn't ready. Or I think Arsenal mid, I think Martinelli has shown how insane he can be when Jesus is on the pitch, because against Liverpool, you saw basically they switched. What happened was Trent wanted to avoid. Initially, Martinelli was on that side and Trent was completely lost. And he almost sort of was cutting in because they didn't want to put him under pressure with Martinelli. Then Martinelli and Jesus again swapped. So Martinelli wanted to stick on Trent and continue to attack. And he'll continue to do that. If he's playing with Jesus, he'll play a lot more centrally as well. So I think good pick as well if you didn't have a free hit.
Yeah. You either go Arsenal or you restructure your team to get Salah. I think these are your options if you're not free hitting 32.
Correct.
Yeah.
And possibly a Brighton mid if you don't have a third Brighton asset.
Yeah, that's fine. But again, it depends on how many people you have playing in 32, right? If you're not free hitting in 32, that's the equation to be taken into consideration. But, while you're rejigging, etc., all of this, losing Estupinan isn't a big deal in my opinion now, because it's fine to keep a third Brighton spot open for an attacker. I mean, that's another thing that's changed in my head as well after this week. I mean, Brighton absolutely dismantled Spurs, in my opinion. They were all over them. Harry Kane had 1 touch from which he scored a goal. But before that, Brighton, not just gameplay, by the letter of the law, should have had 2 or 3 more goals in the game. And I see them doing this to anybody except City at the moment. So, whatever the fixture is, don't be fooled by seeing Chelsea away for your Brighton midfielders. Great fixture. Any fixture is a great fixture for Brighton attackers. I think they're good for a return or 2 in any game. What a manager. He's probably right now my favorite manager in the league. Like, fights for the team, absolutely gave it to Stillany because Stillany sort of nagged him and poked him before the game as well, saying that, the success that Brighton have is because of the previous manager. It got to him. And I love how he just lashed out at him. Team Brighton, love the guy.
I mean, so what do you guys think instead of basically, let's say somebody's decided to replace this spot, whether that's Maddison or Rashford or whoever. What is the thinking? Why not take a hit and let's say go Estupinian to a Robertson or a Trent, and go, instead of going Grealish, you go McAllister or whoever, whichever third midfielder you don't have from Brighton. I get the fact that you're crowding your midfield and you may need that slot later. But man, I mean, back to the argument, these guys are putting up numbers similar to Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli. So we wouldn't hesitate doing that for triple Arsenal attack. Why do we hesitate for triple Brighton attack?
Yeah,
Fair
there's
shout.
no anybody's that had triple Brighton attack since the last 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. You've actually made a ton of points going third Brighton attacker over Estupinan already.
Yeah.
Like, so that, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah,
I
the
don't see
defensive
anything.
numbers are nowhere as good as the attack. They are ranked 8th, I think, 8th or 7th for defense over the last 6 matches, but they're right at the top for XG non-penalty, above City and Arsenal. So that is also a very viable strategy. But I was having a look something earlier this morning when I was looking at possibly keeping Rashford. The defense is getting quite crowded going forward. So I like that idea of the whole Estupinan thing, especially if Shaw is fit, because Shaw, Trippier, you sort of play every week. Then you have Chilwell also. You'll be benching a good defender almost every week with Estupinan in there, because 33 they play Forest. Then they're 36, we're expecting their double to go in against Newcastle. So, see, but if you push Trent in there, then that defense gets even more crowded, right? Because you'll be benching Chilwell most weeks, stuff like that.
You would, but then, I mean, money is money. I mean, you would still be playing Estupinian in those doubles as well. So it's not that Trent slot, basically the Chilwell slot is semi-useless, regardless of where you go. I mean, he'll be needed this week if, let's say, Shaw is still out. But after this week, I don't see, like you said, if Shaw is fit, Trippier is fit, and if Estupinian has a double, those are your 3 defenders.
Correct. That's the point I wanted to make also. I think Chilwell also is a sellable asset, because I don't think he'll start this weekend. I'd be pretty shocked if he does, because let's be frank, pun intended, there's no reason to play Chilwell this weekend, because this is pretty much all we have to play for. Wednesday to Tuesday is our turnaround.
Yeah. I mean, your priorities are set now. After that loss, I think your priorities are pretty much set.
Yep.
The one thing though, I think how was Lamps with James back in the race off?
He liked him, but the thing is, in general, Lamps didn't like playing a back three much. What would happen was we'd lose a game, he switched to a back three, maybe we would win that game, then this next game after that we would keep the back three, we'd lose, and then again he'd go to a back four. That was the main problem with Frank. He was very reactionary as a manager.
How was he in the game? Because I saw his numbers and they were incredibly good. I saw the highlights also, and he was quite far forward and looked quite sharp as well. Any thoughts
against Wolves?
James? Yeah.
I don't know. I thought we were abysmal top to bottom. James was good, but I think the main thing that helped was sort of having Oba second half of the game. He gave us a bit more of a focal point, but he was quite attacking. No doubt about that. And the thing is, the attack naturally gravitated towards the right because Chilwell wasn't playing. Cucurella offered nothing on the left side, so naturally all the attacks just built up towards the right. It's a bit different when Chilwell plays.
Yeah. And also, I think it's worth mentioning, I think all 3 of us still think that Liverpool are poor defensively. Like, there's no 2 ways about it. But I think at the moment, with Saliba not fit for Arsenal, there are probably just 2 reliable defenses, Newcastle and Man City. Outside of that, there aren't reliable defenses. And you do take stock of clean sheet fixtures if you're talking about those teams that Liverpool played and they're playing at home. The odds of a clean sheet are there, even though they're conceding chances. So you're just rolling the dice on high upside there.
Speaking
of a bigger discussion. Sorry, Zoph, go on.
Now, just talking about, speaking of defenses, Palace are 4th for XG conceded non-penalty over the last 6 matches. I think we should talk a little bit about Olise also as a possible Grealish replacement option, especially for those not free hitting in 32.
Need to see more. I'm not convinced it isn't a trap. There are 2 or 3 things that are going on in my head about Palace at the moment. Like, I don't know, the first 2 games felt like a drunk boy performance. It's not what we are used to from Roy Hodgson. And if you saw the game, Leeds dismantled Palace in the first half.
I didn't see the game. Yeah, I thought you were going to say Palace dismantled Leeds. That's got me a little off guard.
Leeds completely shat all over Palace in the first half. Then what happened early in the second half, they conceded 1 goal. And it's like they were in shock. Like it was like game state, and then they just gave up, heads fell. They didn't know how to react, and Palace scored 5 goals. But Palace didn't have a sniff in the first half. So Secondly, I think Palace win a game or two more. I think they're chilling in the beach after that because they are going to be chilling, not going to be having to worry about relegation. So I'd say tread with caution when it comes to Palace. I'm not into the whole hype yet. Oli says somebody who's more of an assister than a goal scorer. I think Eze is more of an 8. I'm not convinced yet. I need to see more before. I still punt on a couple of them if I'm free hitting in 32, but long-term picks, I'd say there are better picks in the market at the moment, especially with the midfield assets that Pras spoke about right at the top of the show.
Fair enough. You agree, Pras?
Yeah, I mean, if Olise was a striker, I mean, I think there's a place for a 7th attacker punt, which is not a midfielder. So if people wanted to go different for a Watkins position or a Havertz position or something, there is a place there to be different. The opportunity cost of going for Olise instead of a Grealish or a Bruno or a Salah is just too high. Walsh in FML FPL was saying basically a Brighton midfielder against any fixture is better than and he's a Palace fan, obviously, Olise against any team. So it's just, you just don't trust it. And, if you look back after 5 game weeks, after 5 blanks, you think, is it possible with Olise would happen? Is it possible with a Brighton mid? You'd have to be very unlucky, or with a Grealish. So that's...
I agree.
Fair enough. I think let's do a roundup of the Rashford replacements in terms of priority, because that is really the big talking point this week. And let's do it for free hit and non-free hit. Give me your ranking top 3 for both options. Pras, I'll come to you first.
If you have a free hit 32, then, well, this is now getting into flowchart territory. But if you have a free hit 32 and you have a 5th midfielder that is not essential, like a Leicester mid, so then keep Rashford and replace him with a Grealish. That would be my first priority. The second one would be maybe bring him to a McAllister, a 3rd Brighton mid, and upgrade your Estupinian for a hit. So these are the 2 things that appeal to me. Where are we in the flowchart? If you have a free hit 32, but you do not have this free slot, so like Zoph, where you have a Saka or a Martinelli, then I think you could look to sell Rashford with a view that you get him back in 34, or if not, then you keep your player. And in that case, I think, again, a City mid makes sense because you're free hitting in game week 32. Out of the flowchart, if you don't have a free hit in game week 32, then I think Arsenal mid, in fact, priority number 1 would be Salah, if you can get to him easily. Or an Arsenal mid would be your 2 priorities, because these are the 2 guys that everybody will have on their free hit in game week 32.
Great summary.
Very complicated.
No, but it's very well summarized. Anything more to add to that, Ella? I certainly don't have anything to add.
No, I think the people that are not free hitting in 32 do need to look at Salah, in my opinion. Leeds away is a great fixture. But for most of them, it's Kane versus Bournemouth at home. So that move is going to be delayed for most. But if you don't have a striker called Harry Kane, then restructure your team to get Salah then.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Just move on from the Rashford discussion that we've covered. Palace, I think we covered City, Arsenal and Liverpool. Let's talk a little bit about Chelsea. Big game tonight. How are you boys feeling?
I'm cheering for Super Frankie Lampard, and I hope he pulls a result against Madrid, but I'm not feeling very optimistic about it. How about you, Zoph?
I just hope we can. It's less than 2 goals. It's something. At least the second leg is at the bridge. That's what I'm hoping for. If it's a 1-0 or 2-0, there's some hope. I just don't want it to go beyond that. Anything. I'll take a 2-0 and bring them back to the bridge with that. Anything we get a draw or a draw would be fantastic. But I'd bite your hand off for a 2-0 if you offered that to me right now.
Yeah.
But just context then, Zoph. I mean, question to you: lost to Wolves, lose to Madrid. You think he then rotates in the Premier League? I mean, can he afford it?
What's there to play for in the Premier League?
I mean, pride. I mean, the guy is only there for 6 weeks. I mean, he doesn't want to do a Gary Neville and basically end up, completely shitting the bed with the team. I just feel the pressure will be, he's already benched. So I'm obviously looking at it from a selfish FPL perspective, but you bench Chilwell in one game, then you bring him back against Madrid, you lose, then you bench him again in the Premier League. I don't get it. Like, he would probably just go gung-ho for these 3 games because they're 3 important games.
Possibly he could look to build some momentum, look to build some rhythm. But the problem is the turnaround, right? Wednesday away, you come back and then you play again on Saturday and then it's a Tuesday game. If it was a slightly longer turnaround, the Tuesday, Wednesday, like how City have, I'd completely be on board with that. But the risk of injury and fatigue, right? Ultimately, you want them all to have energy in reserve to go full gung-ho on Tuesday. Brighton are a tough team. It's not even an easy team, right? You're going to expend a lot of energy playing against Brighton. Let's say Chilwell gets injured, or let's say a James gets injured. There's more pressure on Lampard in that sense. That's what I'm worried about.
So FPL wise, start all three Brighton basically.
All three Brighton. Chilwell is a 50-50 call because he does take a lot of set pieces, and Brighton, as we have seen, are very poor from set pieces. They could concede a header and stuff like that. But I think Chilwell, the problem is if he doesn't start, he probably will come on. Like we saw against Wolves, and most of us have the Shaw issue as well to compound it, and you don't want to play Botman against away to Villa. So in that case, you probably just start Chilwell and hope.
Zoph, somebody like me who probably want to get a Trent in for Chilwell, if he's my outlet to a Trent, you give a thumbs up to sell Chilwell for Trent?
Big thumbs up.
Big thumbs up, yeah.
I think Chilwell's pretty much done now because ultimately with the Frank Lampard's at the wheel, the defense is going to shit the bed. I don't think Chilwell's going to be playing in a wing-back role much. If there are moves to get Chilwell, like I was considering moving him out to Ake, even though I didn't really like Ake as an FPL asset this morning. But now with the Rashford news, I'll probably move him on. Chilwell's very expendable now going forward.
Yeah, I think the defense is tricky because even Newcastle that we're looking at, they don't have that many clean sheet fixtures on paper. Like in the next 7-8 weeks, they're playing Brighton, they're playing Spurs, they're playing Arsenal, they're playing Leeds, which I think are a decent attacking team, and Chelsea. So, still we're going to hold them because they're more reliable than anybody else at the moment.
Correct.
I think people may just come down to Trippier, basically. And we'll have a Trippier problem in Gameweek 34, by the way, because he plays Southampton at home and the rest of the defenders will double. But do you trust Trippier at home to Southampton versus other doubling defenders that are not as great? That'll be a discussion for later. But yeah, I think Newcastle at home you can back, but away they've not been great at all.
Yeah, but I think that's a conversation to have right now because when you're sort of future planning your moves and you're trying to get as many doublers in for 34, it's nice to take note of great single game week fixtures, and Newcastle versus Southampton is one of them where it's almost a perma play. So you can sort of, pin down these two spots with their single game weekers that you're happy to play and get or optimize other doublers. Like, like Zoph was talking about whether you should move Rashford out. And that's one transfer less in case he wants to make the Grealish to Rashford transfer later. He's the fact that Trippier is playing Southampton at home sort of allows that.
Yep.
Because you're thinking in your planning stage, okay, I've got a great single game week that I have no problems with. You're probably going to hate benching Trippier in that week, so why not?
Yep. So, I mean, this was to you. Sorry, just to complete. If you go Chilwell to Trent, like I was saying, I might bench Chilwell. You will have to play 4 defenders in Gameweek 34. Trent double, Shaw double, Estupinian double, Trippier home to Southampton.
Yeah.
You'll need to think about that structure as well, because if you have 4 defenders, 5 attackers, then you can't get another striker alongside Haaland.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zoph.
I was having a look at that, and I think that is possible. I think Watkins has a difficult fixture that week. I don't remember, but I think Elad, anyway, you don't have Watkins, but I'm just talking it more from a macro picture. Who does Watkins have? Can you just tell me real quick? I remember seeing it this morning. I forgot.
In 34, United.
Yep. 34 United. Okay, so I was wrong. My bad.
Wait.
Yeah. All right, a couple of questions, I think, because we've covered from a macro point of view, but I think there are people who have some specific questions now. A lot of people are looking to dead end their team in 32 and probably wildcard in 33. 2 week punts. Come on, talk to me, boys.
Probably at Liverpool. I think it's who have the best next 2 fixtures. I like Palace again. I would say 2 week punt. Palace have Everton, I think, and Southampton next 2.
Yeah, I mean the teams that are in front of me, Liverpool have Leeds and NFO. Again, great. I think great place to punt. What do you guys think about Darwin? Because I think I need to have a conversation about it. Because a lot of people who are chasing rank are looking at him sort of skeptically in terms of what his injury looking like. But he's serious upside potential waiting there to be explored. What do you think about that, Pras?
I owned Darwin a lot and I have been disappointed. But I'm just not sure where Diaz is. Diaz, we've seen that he's back in the squad, but we haven't seen him get a lot of minutes yet. Because I think in terms of the structure, Gakpo is doing really well. He's basically become the new Bobby Firmino, even though he's slightly more advanced than what Bobby used to be. So then you have one slot for Darwin, Jota, Diaz. And so I worry that, and especially if you're going for a double game week, then they will rotate. Will Darwin play both games or not? But then the counter to that is, you saw in the last game, the guy could have scored a couple of goals, even in that small cameo that he had.
great when he's on the pitch. He's just
Exactly.
great. Yeah.
So
I
don't
think
hate it at all.
Yeah, I don't hate it either. Like if you're chasing and you need to go for high upside, there's nothing else high upside compared to Darwin, in my opinion, given the fixtures. It's just monitor his fitness, maybe listen to a couple of Liverpool pods, see what's happening there, because I think the key there is his fitness, which is where we don't have information. Arsenal have great fixtures in the next two. They've got West Ham. Wait, where's Arsenal?
West Ham,
Yeah, they've got
Southampton.
West Ham away. Yeah, West Ham, Southampton. I think if you have an Arsenal spot open, go there first to punt. Do you guys agree?
Correct. I mean, you have to think about what a free hit team in 32 will look like. People will have 3 Arsenal, 3 Liverpool. If you don't have that and you're dead ending, get to as many Arsenal or Liverpool as you can, because good teams and will be a big popular team in free hit. I think Maddison you hold because good fixture in Gameweek 32. I think Crystal Palace, I think Zoph, like you mentioned, is fine. Gameweek 32 has a lot of decent striker options. Tony has a good fixture. Well, Tony and Watkins play each other, so you could play either. They're never bad shouts. So there's a lot of options. You could play double Newcastle defense home to Spurs. Newcastle are good at home. I mean, they battered Man United at home, so they're always a good team if you wanted to go there. But these are players that you already own. I think to your question on who you would buy, you would start with maybe Liverpool, second priority Arsenal, third priority Crystal Palace.
Yeah, there's nobody else I can see who I can spot. I mean, if you don't have Ivan Toney, good bet for 2 weeks. Wolves away, Aston Villa at home. No, nothing wrong with those fixtures.
I don't know. I wouldn't possibly look to buy Tony now, obviously. There's nothing wrong with him as a whole. But just going back to the Darwin thing, LR, now I again go back to the schedule from 32 to 35 for Liverpool.
No, this is for people who are wildcarding in 33. Who are looking at
short term. Short term, that's possibly fine. You have your Leeds and Forest.
Yeah, just that. That's all. Because there's a substantial amount of people who are looking to wildcard 33, bench boost 34. So I thought we saw that question. Somebody asked me in the chat, why not gloves? I'm not saying no gloves. For information, Ten Hag did mention that he was ready to start the Everton game. And he thinks he's ready to start the next game. So I think he's expected to start this game. So again, decent punt. He's going to be very likely playing striker, especially so now that Rashford isn't fit. But if you're buying him, buy him after Thursday, because he could crumble in that game. That's how fitness averse he is at the moment. So yeah.
To me, Martial feels like a pick you make on the Friday before game week 34. Basically, you've seen everything, you know he's fit, and you now want to create fun. So, for example, in my setup, I could go Kane to Martial, and I could go Rashford. Let's see if he's not fit, and I've held him. I could go Rashford to Salah. I could go Watkins to Martial, and I could go Bruno up to Salah. So,
but he's got Forest away right now, Pras.
Right now, well, I mean, it's fair. You could go for him now, but again, what are you holding him for? You want him for that double in 34, possibly that double in 37.
Yeah. But I mean, there are a certain sect of people who like to go this way. I think right now is as good a time as any if you're punting. Just know you're punting. That's all.
Of course.
Just know you're punting. That's all. I mean, there are a bunch of obvious picks and there are a bunch of picks that you're chasing and they're right here in front of you. I mean, there's nobody else. The thing is, outside of the 5, 6, 7 teams that we're looking at, like there's a bunch of 8, 9 teams at the bottom that aren't good. The middling teams like Fulham aren't an option anymore because of the lack of Mitro. So you're just looking at the top 6 or 7 teams.
Speaking of Fulham, let's talk a bit about beach teams. I think we're just about getting to that part of the season. Fulham are firmly on the beach. They've got their mojitos out. Who else do we think is about there now?
Fulham 4 losses in a row now. 4 losses in a row now. So that's talking. Let me look at the Premier League table. Who could be beaching?
I mean, while you're looking at
that, Fulham is just not. I mean, there's 2 problems. One is their league position and their motivations. But let's say it could be a statistical anomaly that they've just gone out of form. It's basically Mitrovic for 8 games or now 7, 8 games is a massive loss. And you know, basically Marco Silva said in the past, we don't know how to play without Mitrovic. So you could go for an Andreas Pereira, but he takes up a midfield slot, 4.3 on penalties. But again, don't expect a lot. You could go for a last-minute Vinicius punt in Game Week 34. Again, something you do on the deadline.
Have you seen Vinicius play? Like, and Zoph talk about Succession and Logan Raw and Greg. I mean, the downgrade from Metro to Vinicius is probably the greatest downgrade in a Premier League team for any position that I can think of at the moment. Like, I can't think of a wider gap. He's just terrible. He's so terrible to watch. He doesn't contribute anything. I'd rather play. They have Dan James. I'd rather stick Dan James in and move around the opposition than throw Vinicius in. He's just terrible. Just terrible. And they don't know how to function with him. Right.
Completely agree. I'm just having a look at all the teams, and I can't find anybody else who's really has much of a downgrade. Everybody has at least somebody decent, or if not, both the strikers are equally bad, like at Wolves. There's nobody who I can think of where the gap is that much.
Yeah. I think those teams are going to be beaching, like Wolves and Palace, who are probably on the precipice of safety. Those are the things that you maybe need to worry about. That's why I just mentioned Palace a little bit. That's all.
Probably Watkins, who's a backup striker at Villa now. Traore? Right?
No. I mean, Traore isn't a striker, though. He's
No,
sort
he
of
isn't, but
being
who
like
do they
a
have? They have Archer, because it's his old age,
Yeah.
right? So they actually don't have
Yes.
anybody else in backup.
still better than Vinicius.
Probably.
Yeah. That's all. That's where we are. Cool. We'll move to captaincy and then we can do a little Q&A.
Yes, let's just talk a few matchups first. There's some interesting ones
Yeah.
this week. Let's start up first with Forest against United. Forest weaknesses all over the flanks, down the center, but at home. You think this could be a banana skin for you guys? Is Sevilla today home or away? Tomorrow, rather. Is that
But yes,
home or away?
tomorrow.
Is that home or away?
Sevilla's
I'm
home.
looking.
Okay, that's not that bad. 'cause
Sevilla's Old Trafford.
Old Trafford. If you had 2 away games, I think the Forest game would have potentially been a banana skin.
I'm not too worried. Not particularly worried about Forest. Gloves is going to start put on.
What do
a
we
9 out of
think
10
Bruno's
performance.
impact will be? The impact of Rashford's injury. What do you think it will be on Bruno?
I think he'll go back to 10 and he's going to be a good FPL asset.
Basically, the goals need to come from other places, right?
Yeah.
So everyone has to chip in now.
And Eriksen and Casemiro are back. So the only threat that Bruno has is that Sabitzer put in decent performances at 10, but I think Bruno comes back for the forward.
I agree.
There's a lot of talk about him playing deep, but I thought the end of the last game, he had a few good chances, which he really should have scored.
Even when he was deep, he could have got 2 assists of Anthony in the first
3
half.
or 4 assists.
Yeah.
Like he was creating chances for fun. Played an incredibly good game. That game against Everton, I mean, commiserations to Rashford captainers. I thought they've been hard done by. It was a 5-0, 6-0 sort of game. Just didn't take the chances.
What was the line they were playing? I couldn't believe my eyes what I was seeing. They were playing at the halfway line. This is a Sean Dyche team. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Our perception needs to change. There's a few things where our perception needs to adjust. Everton are possibly one of the best attacking fixtures for your attackers. But then again, FML FPL have a very interesting theory. I was listening to them this week and they said that when it comes to Everton and Dyche playing superior teams, they give up. They don't plan for them. And we've sort of seen that. And they're like, he's micro-focused on similar level opposition and trying to get a point or 3 in those games. So make of that what you may. It's just a theory at the moment.
Best shout.
I mean, it's also a lesson for us. Sometimes we overplay the new manager bounce effect, or what will happen. I mean, I remember we all went for Tarkowski, double ups, triple ups for a double game week. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. We should attack doubles when they come. But I think it's a similar thing with Crystal Palace. If we have to take a learning, that sometimes you get an anomaly, couple of good games, but that doesn't mean if you're picking those players or those backing those teams for 5, 6, 7 game weeks that effect remains, because shit teams are still shit teams.
Spot on.
Sorry for Crystal Palace and Everton fans.
So Spurs and Bournemouth. I mean, captaincy is. Do we need to discuss anybody other than Haaland? Do you think Haaland could be getting rotated? Is Kane an option? Where are we on that?
No, City won 3-0. Haaland will play and he's going to be my captain.
Fair enough.
Same. Look, I would say Salah and Kane are good alternatives for people who don't have. So there's a lot of people who are not on a free hit in 32. I can think of like Ben Crellin as an example. The people have basically last week taken a chance, and now it's too late in the process to get him because they're not free hitting. So for them, I don't think the delta is that big this week between a Salah against Leeds and a Kane against Bournemouth. to a 60-minute Haaland. But you never know. Look, I mean, Leicester have a new manager. Maybe they improve, but they could also capitulate completely.
Yep. I don't think we
I
know
mean,
Dean Smith for
odds
being very
on.
solid defensively, right? So I think they're going to pretty much target the fixtures after this. Elad, you
Yeah,
were
I
saying?
mean, Bournemouth had 2.3 xG against Leicester. So I just think you target Leicester. Terrible defensively.
Bournemouth's numbers are actually really good. I was just checking Solanke's numbers over the last 3 matches. The XGI is close to over 3.5, 4. I think on 32 free
In
hit, I'm
general-
definitely looking to bring in Solanke.
Solanke, not Bournemouth in general. Just credit to O'Neill, what's his name? Is it O'Neill?
Gary O'Neill.
I sort of Gary O'Neill. Yes, he's done a tremendous job. I mean, I think we were cheering for Bournemouth because they were showing good things and not coming through since the last 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. I think they're consistently hitting 1.5 xG. Like, I think on paper, this fixture isn't as easy for Spurs as it might be perceived. I think they're in a good space at the moment, Bournemouth.
Okay. I think, yeah. I mean, they could be a candidate for on the beach in 3-4 weeks because they've actually pulled out from the relegation scrap.
Yeah, I have Bournemouth to score a goal against Spurs. Like, I think they create 1.5 xG consistently, and I think they're good this week too.
So, non-Haaland captains, where would you rank the guys? Kane top or Salah?
Salah ahead of Kane for me.
I mean, even Saka is playing West Ham.
Yeah. There are lots of explosive options this week.
I like Kane still at home to Bournemouth. There's some history there also. I don't know. In my head, it feels like he always gets a goal or two against Bournemouth.
It does, doesn't it? It does feel like he always does well against Bournemouth. That sort of thought is in my head as well.
If not Haaland, I would definitely go Kane. I have the numbers up here from Fantasypaedia also now for the chances conceded. City against Leicester. Leicester have their weakness down their right flank, which is again prime Grealish territory. So that matchup is definitely there if you want that confirmation bias.
For sure.
I mean, with Grealish, I just want to also sort of just some perspective that we get so much into he's the best pick, he's the best. His XGI numbers are great, but his XG numbers are pretty poor.
Exactly.
So don't expect goals. Like, he could get a goal, but like, because he's got a goal and assist in the last 2 Premier League games, people expect Mahrez type returns. I think they're different players. And I think we talked about it the last pod as well, that he's not the guy who scores the goals. He gets a lot of XA and he's doing a lot of good stuff. He'll get minutes. But will you ever captain him? Let's say we hear that Haaland is out. Will you captain Grealish?
No, but I think Pras, the thing is, based on what is happening when we're watching City, is probably that shift from him becoming an XA dominant player to somebody who's taking more shots when he's confident, etc., is probably what we are witnessing at the moment. We're not fully sure about that. So there is a chance of something like that happening. That's all.
Because you see the Southampton game, I think he had good XG numbers. He had 3 shots over there. But yesterday against Bayern, 0.03 XG, but 4 good chances created. But from what I can see off the ball, he's there and around the box. And that's where he wanted the City guys, right? Because they play that low cross across the box all the time. That's the standard MO. So in general, he's getting into those areas which he wasn't earlier. He was sort of holding the width. But I think maybe Cancelo being out or Cancelo's role being out has possibly changed things a little bit for Grealish. He's coming inside a bit more with Ake staying out in that wide position.
Yeah, his numbers are definitely improved before restart and after, in my opinion.
And it's a confidence thing, right? It's a purple patch. You can tell right now he's in his best moment in a City shirt. So it's all about capitalizing on that, I think. I've got some numbers now for Chelsea and Brighton. There's nothing much to really glean from this. Both teams concede chances out wide. Mitoma, March, McAllister, do you guys have any preference about who you should play bench?
Same as always. Go with the vibes. Nothing's changed.
I'm playing both.
Yeah, that's an easy.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm saying is don't feel good about starting your Brighton midfielders. Not bad. That's all.
Yeah, I'd probably be benching March again. I don't like that, but it is what it is.
I mean, March's underlying numbers are way better than Mitoma. But the problem is, when you watch the game, it's hard to drop Mitoma.
It's hard. I agree.
There's just no justification for which one to bench.
It's a coin toss every week. Now, I think you like these numbers a lot for Leeds versus Liverpool. Leeds, lot of weaknesses down their left flank. Hopefully a Salah explosion coming for you.
I mean, I'm due. If anything, I'm due. I made the mistake of looking at the difference in terms of what these points would have made. It was actually 100K difference.
Oh man.
Like that's the season. That's
Yeah.
terrible
Never look.
season, good season.
Never look.
Okay, it was.
It's a pointless exercise. West
Yeah.
Ham
I mean, it's
again.
worth saying of the penalty thing. I mean, there was little bit of comments. I mean, just for completeness, I think it's complete scaremongering, and he'll be on penalties. But there were some comments after the game that they will reevaluate or something because Salah's missed two. What do you think? I mean, is it just hot air and he'll continue to be on pens?
I mean, after witnessing what I've witnessed, I don't mind if he's off pens fully also.
Because what happens is if you miss the pen, it messes with your head, right? You're trying a little bit harder. You're snatching at shots a little bit. I think he goes off them. I think Fabinho possibly goes on. Or even Henderson. They have good takers.
Yeah. And he's a fine pick outside of pens. I mean, his NPXG was 1.5 against Arsenal. So, like, that's very... Yeah. Where does that rank, by the way? I was thinking about it just trivially. Worst FPL feeling to experience? Player penalty miss up there or anything else that sort of...
A captaincy penalty miss. Captaincy penalty miss would be up there. Captaincy red card. That's happened to me with Aguero. I think he came on once at halftime and then he got sent off. That would be up there as well.
That, and then I have a habit of just looking at the bonus points in the 88th, 89th minute for my defenders. And when you lose a 9-pointer in the 90th minute onwards, I think those three are probably in the worst 3 FPL feelings to experience. Pras, anything else that sort of just cheeses you off?
With in a game, I think that's about it. I mean, I remember a Sun red card when a lot of people captained a couple of seasons ago or something like that. Penalty miss has to be up there, man. I mean, if it's a captain, I have a hard time even watching. I mean, I sometimes still look, but it is a terrible feeling because you're not only counting the points that you're getting from minus, but what you could have had, like you did. Basically, you add 5, you add bonus to that. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's a plus 16 to a minus 4 as a captaincy, right? It's a 20-point swing.
Yeah. And I think in new age FPL, I think it's a VAR goal ruled off. I think I've completed the set in 29 and 30 with Kai having scored the goal against Pool as well. And Baker was in the chat telling me Kai scored. I was like, yay. And 2 minutes later, he's like, sorry, bro. That's a ruled offside. I'm like, I've just completed the set of pain this week. I think I'm done now.
Yeah. And you can add another one, getting a referee apology after the game for something that was obviously a penalty.
Oh my God. I think Brighton got done badly in that game. Just badly. I feel for them because I'm team deserves.
3rd apology this season, man.
Yeah. Gotta feel for them.
But there's a new one as well. Sorry, while we're on the topic, is when your player actually scores a goal and they don't count it as a goal, and then they count it as a goal 3 days later, and it doesn't count as FPL points.
Yeah. I think we can sit here and just chat about this for about 30 minutes at every instance that's happened this season. But yeah, it is what it is.
Bus teams?
Yeah.
I've got my team up here first. I've got Raya, Trippier, Estupinan, and Henry. Mitoma. I've got Rashford in there. Saka, Fernandes, Kane, Watkins, Haaland captain, Kepa, March, Botman, and Chilwell on the bench. I think Rashford will probably be making way for Grealish with March bench. Chilwell versus Henry is a decision. I'm probably going to leave till late because I am already playing Raya. I might split the risk or double down. What do you guys think?
Split the risk. Brentford don't inspire confidence defensively at the moment to me.
Yeah, but it's Wolves though. I think Chilwell, because I'm pretty convinced Brighton are going to score. It's just playing Chilwell for the attacking threat, I think. But upside is there, like you said.
It's there. It's Chilwell.
Why don't you play Botman instead of Henry?
I think Villa score. I rank Villa very highly.
That's defends you back, man. I mean, Henry brings nothing. In terms of at least Raya could get save points. If there's a clean sheet, you get bonus. So I think, if you look at it in isolation, I think Raya is maybe a better keeper this week than Kepa. But then if you again look at it in isolation, who's a better defense to back? Brentford away or Newcastle away? You back Newcastle away. Just a thought.
I agree, but I do think Henry is a bit attacking, though. They've been playing him as a wing back over last few games. He does have a little bit of attacking potential.
And Pras, Zoph does have a soft spot for Rico. I know that. He's looked him up. He's like, he loves Rico. Do the thing. Play Rico.
Also, by the way, start Chilwell, no? I mean, just take the 1 pointer on the chin.
That's the decision I think I have to make.
Yep.
I thought earlier possibly about doing Chilwell to Ake earlier and benching Rashford. But I just don't like Ake as a pick going forward. Just so limited upside. I know he's been playing every game, but Pep's going to randomly drop him in some game where you need him, right? Not a pick I really fancy in defense.
Edison much better.
Edison's much better. And keep the third City slot free just in case. Plus, I've got your team up.
I have got Pope in goals. I am playing double Newcastle defense because my alternative obviously is Kepa. So I have. Sorry, I've got the wrong first team.
I'll read it out for you. It's Pope, Trippier, Chilwell, Estupinan. Double Brighton mids with March, Mitoma, Fernandes, Rashford, Kane, Haaland, and Watkins. With bench of Kepa, Shaw, Botman, and Barnes.
Right. So first thing, I think given Rashford's update, I'll do Barnes to Grealish and bench Rashford. That's the first thing. Second, I need to make a decision after the game on whether to start Shaw or not. So I might be tempted to start Shaw over Chilwell if you tell me that he's not starting, or maybe over Estupinan. But that would be the thinking. And I'm happier starting Pope over Kepa as a single pick, basically.
Yep.
I'd agree with that. Shaw doesn't really matter, right? I think he's missing this weekend anyway, from what I've heard.
No, he said he's out this game, which is basically he's referring to Sevilla.
Yeah. And he'll have a shorter time than he was talking about.
But he's not even
Garnacho,
training. From what I've heard, he's not even training. I think this game weekend will probably be too soon. Anyway, we'll find out.
Yeah.
But Shaw is, I mean, just while we're discussing this, it's worth holding on until him 34, I reckon.
For sure.
It's worth holding on, but I'm again going to make a point about Shaw going back to the schedule. This is a personal judgment completely. I think he's going to miss a game between 33 to 35. Because you have to manage that hamstring injury. You can't run him to the ground again. Your team up, LR?
Before I read out my team, I just want to tell people in the chat, get your questions ready because we'll do a short Q&A after this. And if you haven't liked or subscribed, please make sure you do that. If you want to support the podcast, make sure you're becoming a member on YouTube or supporting us on Patreon. We've got a Discord ongoing as well where people are chatting all the time. So yeah, do the things, click the buttons. We really, really appreciate it. Just going to read out my team very quickly. I have Raya as my keeper, Trippier, Chilwell, and Botman at the moment. March, McAllister, Salah, and Maddison in midfield. Haaland, Tony, and Havertz. Now, I don't know what my moves are likely going to be, but I just had a little play around while you were reading out your teams off, and I can afford Havertz, Maddison, and Chilwell to Trent, Grealish, and Marshall. So something I'm playing around with. I think I want to just have some fun. I've been not having fun in the last 2-3 weeks with FPL, so I might just do some crazy things.
Interesting. Marshall, I like that you go for Marshall.
Yeah. Just do things that make you happy, right?
You're going to have 11 doublers plus Trippier. I'm just letting you know in 34. It's making me very uncomfortable that you're going to bench Trippier.
Yeah, but Marshall will be injured. Marshall will be injured by then.
It's true. Yeah. You can bench
the three United I'm carrying are Marshall, who's likely to get injured, Rashford, who's possibly going to be injured, and Shaw, who we don't know about yet. So, this is still that equation. And it's still very early days. I haven't honestly given a thought about what I'm going to do this week because I think there's a lot of football still to be played. And so I'll decide what to do then.
Fantastic. Let's do the Q&A. What's happening with the cricket? Chennai is playing. Let me have a quick look.
Yeah, man. I'm cheering for your... Oh my God. Jaiswal is out.
By the way, Rubber Ducky, I saw is in the chat. He made a point that Brighton are looking leggy. Is there any concern you guys have that they have so many doubles coming up and they keep playing the same players? I think it's a valid... I haven't seen tiredness as such. They were still very attacking. It could become a factor later. What do you think?
Cross that bridge when you get there.
Agree. Yeah. Good numbers to we haven't seen a drop off in terms of numbers, and I trust Baker's eye test a lot. He was at the stadium. He was saying Brighton were phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right. We've got more than a few questions happening. I'll quickly shoot them to you guys. And yeah, actually, Zoph, before I answer the questions, what do I do about Kai? Sell? Easy sell?
For?
Whoever. Do I sell Kai? That's the question I'm asking.
It's not a priority sell this week if you have other fires in your team, but you could get rid. To be honest, I'm hoping Oba gets a bit of minutes now going forward.
Yeah, I'm a little worried. I don't know who his preferred choice of striker is, and he's never been too much of a Kai man, though he got him into the team. But I just wanted to know what you feel about that.
Because if you play a 4, right, he's playing earlier. We were playing 2 strikers sort of thing with Havertz, Felix. Now he's sort of playing that 1 striker with the 2 wide guys. So there's a bit
Yeah.
more competition in that spot now.
Okay. All right. Lots of questions. I'll start churning them out. Do we think Grealish keeps his place till 34 with Foden back soon? Risky, right? Zoph?
I think he does. I think Foden is more suited now to the right wing.
Yeah, I agree. Ross agreed?
Agreed. And you get your City attackers for upside and you pray. You can't do anything else.
The price, right, is ultimately getting an entry into the City. Haaland doesn't count. You're getting another City attacker pretty much for sub 7 or 7 million.
Correct. Somebody's asked, priced out of Grealish to Rashford by 0.1. He's got the template team with 1 free hit. Any other moves he can do this week?
Does he want to enable, I guess, right? And possibly downgrade your keeper.
Yeah. And depending, if you're not free hitting in 32, then get an Arsenal mid.
I think he's got a free hit he mentioned, right? Or
Yeah. He's got a free hit left. So maybe you could do that depending on his team.
Yeah, I think the goalkeeper transfer makes sense because I think Kepa is pretty much dead. I do think he's going to throw Mendy in randomly at some point. So you possibly go for like a Guaita or whoever the Palace keeper is. Somebody you can play down the line.
Or downgrade Chilwell to Ake.
Or Chilwell to Ake.
Yeah, good moves, like all of them. Selling Kane to get Salah versus Leeds and got long term. How do you boys feel about that?
Not this week.
Yeah. Russ?
Same, like we were sitting here last week saying, should we do Barnes to Grealish? But Barnes plays Bournemouth at home. How can you do that? Obviously, Barnes blanks and Grealish gets a 12-pointer.
Just excuse
It's
me, I have to take this
uncomfortable.
call. You guys go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to do it because, you know, the floor for Kane is probably a goal. You'd expect, you know, so you're talking 8 points. What are you going to get for doing the hit? Probably you do it for a hit. I mean, it's just not worth it. Just wait for 33 or 34.
Yeah, wait for a week. Agreed. Next question. Start 2 of Fofana, Estupinan and Botman. I'd start Botman and Estupinan.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Fofana may not be maybe a rotation risk anyway, given the short turnaround.
Exactly, and doesn't offer what Estupinan does on the other side of the pitch. Jared Bowen, decent punt for Rashford if you're building for Gameweek 34, not in my opinion. I think there are way better midfielders and you don't want to block yourself getting a Bowen. Agreed, Pras?
Agreed. So West Ham is the only other team that has a game in 32 and a double in 34, apart from Liverpool. So let's say you're tripled up already on Liverpool and you really don't have a free hit, but it feels forced just to get one extra fixture.
Which is City away, the extra fixture.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, you're making your team worse for the extra fixture. I'm fairly sure about that. If funds aren't an issue, sell Kepa for Iverson or Edison in 34. Edison. I mean, why is that a question? United defender to get. There isn't one at the moment. De Gea. Nobody else. And I don't feel confident about anybody's starts long term. All of them will miss the odd game based on our other games. Anybody? I mean, Lissandro at stretch, but nobody else.
No, I mean, Martinez good for bonus, but I think Dalot and Wan-Bissaka are sharing minutes. Varane and Maguire and Lindelof are sharing minutes. So no, I think what you need to do is, and what I think what Pranil and I will end up doing is you hold the one defender with the upside. Even if he misses a game, he's worth having for 34 and 37 doubles.
Exactly. Rashford to Mahrez is a punt. I think I can speak for all three of us. Neither of us are big on Mahrez at the moment. No.
I mean, you'll get points this week.
Yeah. Good punt for 1 week, 2 weeks, but we doubt his longevity until 34. And that's where you want your City midfielder to come through. Cool. I think that's it. We'll wrap up for this week. We've done an hour 10. We're good. Thank you again, Pras, for joining us this week. It's been a pleasure as usual. And any last words, boys?
Let's go, Frankie.
Well, last words for me. Pleasure being on as always. Thank you for all the love, especially in the beginning of the show, and always great to be on here.
Likewise. Cheers, boys. See you last week. See you next week.
See you next week.